Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Insurance Explained with Andrew Perlin. Hope everyone's doing well. Okay, so last time we had a conversation about one of my clients who was concerned about market risk and how the market may erode her retirement. It's a very real thing, and people need to deal with this all the time. Okay, but her concern was really not market risk. It was really what other things could happen that make me lose my wealth. A big thing that people just don't seem to understand is that your insurance policy is a contract, and it's not going to change unless you change it. However, if you're here to protect your assets, which is the main reason why we have insurance, it's to protect all of your assets, not just a small portion of your assets. You need to be properly insured because if you are not properly insured and your insurance only pays to so much and there's a delta, you have to pay for that. Just because your insurance stopped doesn't mean you're off the hook. That's not how it works. So you have to understand that you are sued for the damage that you caused, not necessarily for the money that you have. So bearing that in mind, you would think that everybody would want to have as much insurance as you possibly can. I know I would, but most people don't. So one of my clients a while ago got into a really bad car accident. They were at fault. They caused not only damage to themselves, but to a handful of other people, a couple of other cars that they hit. And the liability was extremely high. Now, the insurance company, again, does not care what your limits are after the accident happens. They're going to pay to the limit. In this particular case, he was very well insured. I mean, we had a high limit auto, we had an umbrella up to his assets. We were doing a really good job. And luckily, all that damage fell underneath his umbrella. So it worked out. He didn't have to come out of pocket to settle any of these claims, which is huge. But the point I'm trying to make here is if he didn't have that, if that wasn't in place, he would have had to come out of pocket upwards of $1 million to settle all this. Now, most people can't write a check for $1 million. That's why we have to have enough insurance. Because if something bad happens and we are stuck holding this huge bag, we need to make sure that there's enough money there. So most people are asking me, well, what are the chances? Okay, slim. It's not going to happen every day, at least not to you. But what happens if you don't have enough insurance to cover the debt or to cover the issue that you caused? If you can't make the other party whole, that comes from another source. Typically speaking, it comes from your checking account or some other avenue. So what will attorneys look for if there's not enough insurance? They have the right to garnish your wage. They have the right to seize assets. They have the right to take any equity out of your house, depending upon the scenario. So you might not have the cash right now, but there's ways for the other side to get their money. And that could take years and derail not only your financial future, but it can derail your entire life if you do the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time and you do not have enough insurance to cover it. So that's where we are today. People talk about market risk, and I get it. Like it's kind of tough out there right now with things going up and down, and we're not 100% sure how this is going to shake out. And hopefully, we're all working with a financial planner, and they're telling you what you should and shouldn't do. But the thing that you have to remember about a financial planner, and I'm not knocking them because they're extremely important, is their job is to create the asset. That's their job. My job is to protect the asset. And the best way to protect assets is insurance, moving liability from your personal balance sheet to the insurance company's balance sheet. And you're in a scenario where you don't have enough insurance, who's going to pay for that? So I'd much rather you insure it from the perspective of, I want high limit on all of my stuff so I can not have to write a big check. Okay, so now let's dive into that. Most auto insurance policies, the highest you can go is 500,000 single combined limit. So 500,000 for the person, for the property, and for the total accident. Okay, fine. That's a great policy. But if you cause a 3, 4, 5 car pileup on the highway and people are going to the hospital, 500,000 isn't going to get you started. That's where this umbrella policy is going to come into play. Umbrella is going to sit on top of it to make sure that there's enough. Okay, now, can you get into an accident that is higher than your umbrella? 100%. Like it can 100% happen. So to the best of your ability, you can protect yourself. And if you cause damage beyond that, it is what it is. I understand that there may still be a delta, but we're talking $5 million or better. Okay. So when people are looking at their low limits, I always tell them all the time, hey, listen, you get into an accident, you break my arm, no problem. 30,000, no big deal. We're going to be okay. You get into an accident and you break my back, 500,000 minimum, easy. So I want you all to remember that you do not get sued for the money that you have. You get sued for the damage that you caused. I want you to look at it like every asset that you own is traveling in the trunk of your car. And you need to have enough insurance to make sure that everything is covered. medical bills, legal fees, all of that stuff. God forbid you break somebody's back and they can't walk anymore. Well, hey, guess what? You're responsible to make sure that person has wheelchair accessible stuff in their homes, things like that. All this adds up. Now, the flip side of this conversation is the attorneys are going to find out how much insurance I have and they're going to sue me for that amount. Okay, there's some definite truth in that part, and I understand. If you're on the hook for $2 or $3 million and you have an umbrella that's $2 or $3 million, the insurance company of which you have that umbrella is going to make sure that they litigate that case to the best of their ability. However, if that is what happens, let's just say the attorney says you've got a $3 million umbrella, we're going to sue you to $3 million, and they win. Well, guess what? The insurance company is out $3 million and you're not. Okay. So yes, we look at the market and like, oh my God, what will happen in 10 or 15 years if there's a crash right as I'm getting ready to retire? I totally understand it. And that's a really good question to have. And hopefully you have a plan in place that will mitigate any of those losses that may come your way. But a faster way to lose your wealth is this huge liability that you just didn't see coming. And if you're not prepared for that, you could have what we call a financial chest wound to your personal balance sheet. And the only way to cover that wound is with insurance, unless you've got millions and millions of dollars on the other end, just throwing money at this problem to get rid of it. Most people don't. So we try to create millions and millions and millions of dollars by using insurance to do it. People do ask, like, well, it costs money, and I don't think I have it. I'm like, okay, I get it. You can only insure yourself to the point that fits your budget. Understand that. However, a lot of people that I talk to are underinsured. And that's why when they work with me, I'm like, listen, we're going to make sure that you're as protected as you possibly can be. If you have any kind of gap in your insurance, you are leaving yourself open to a financial hit that your personal balance sheet is going to have to cover. So the solution here is umbrella insurance. It always has been the solution. People ask all the time, well, what's the lowest auto policy I can have and still have the umbrella? Typically speaking, $250 for the person, $500 for the accident, and $250 for property. With your home, they're going to want at least $300,000 of liability there. So if you have both of those things and you feel like you have an asset class of $1 million or more, then the recommendation is put an umbrella over that to match your asset class. Umbrella is sold in blocks of $1 million. So that would always be the recommendation. Now, if you don't have 250, 500 or better, and you don't have 300,000 on your home, the recommendation is first and foremost, bump them up to those numbers, because that's the only way you can get the umbrella. By the way, part of your asset class is your ability to earn an income. Everything starts and stops with that. If you get into an accident or something happens and you all of a sudden have to write a check, or more importantly, your wages are garnished, that impedes everything else that you do. And one more thing about umbrella, it doesn't only have to work if there's a car accident or someone falls in your house. Personal umbrella policies cover any kind of liability. It covers anything that you may run into on a personal liability perspective. Lawsuits against defamation, slander, libel, malicious prosecution, false arrest, like those kinds of things. It can be used for court fees and court costs, legal fees, and things of that nature. It's not just I got into an accident and therefore I need umbrella. So if you're not even in an auto accident and you still find yourself looking at some sort of personal liability, umbrella is the best way for you or anybody else to protect your nest egg from any kind of personal liability. Now, there's a lot of different insurance policies out there that will protect your income, whether it's life insurance, disability insurance, long-term care insurance. But in this particular case, we're talking about liability from any kind of home auto accident or any kind of issue that you may run into. An umbrella policy is the most efficient and the most inclusive way to protect your assets from any personal liability. Luckily, my client had a big umbrella because he had a big asset class. And yes, he didn't get sued to the extent of the umbrella, but he got sued to a pretty good margin. The insurance company sent their attorneys down to make sure they didn't have to write this big check. And they may have helped mitigate that to a certain extent. But at the end of the day, he had to pay a certain amount of money. His umbrella covered 100% of it. Done. The other party was happy. They got the money they needed to take care of themselves. He was happy because his nest egg was intact. His personal balance sheet was still functioning. If your plan can't sustain the worst case scenario, I would argue you don't have a plan at all. So please, as you're looking at your stuff, make sure you understand that you can be sued for anything at any dollar amount. They sue you from the extent of the damage that you cause, not the money that you have. You have to make the other person whole, and they don't care how you do it. So personally, I would rather have the insurance company pay for it than to have to go into my personal balance sheet or have my wages garnished to help settle this claim, because that will follow you really for the rest of your life, depending upon how big this issue is. So as you're preparing for any kind of insurance review, you need to have higher limits on your auto to sustain the umbrella policy. That is the best way to protect your wealth. That is the best way to make sure you transfer wealth from you to the next generation without having any kind of issues. Now, again, I don't know if this is going to happen to everybody, but it does happen. And we want to make sure that you are protected all the way around. I would rather you have the insurance and not need it than need the insurance and not have it. Life changes all the time. Your insurance has changed with it too. So if you're not sure what's going on, let's take a look at it. Thanks for your time today. I do appreciate it. Please like and share the link below. If you have any questions about this policy or anything else that I can help you with, leave a comment. I'm more than happy to review your stuff. No pressure, no sales. Just, hey, let me show you what you got and we'll go from there. All right. Thank you for being part of Insurance Explained with Andrew Perlin, and have a great day, everybody.